Did you want to, are you recording or am I? Yeah?
It's recording, yeah.
Okay, great. Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Yvette Campbell, and you probably have no idea who I am. I'm the Institutional Advancement Director for ACS, which means that I promote ACS everywhere I can. I also fundraise for the school, and I tell our story. Today, I'm super excited to welcome one of our corporate partners, Accenture, and JUV Consulting, to actually talk about something really cool, which is the skills of the future. So we're gonna pass it on to our guests straight away because I really don't want to take any more time talking at you. I want you to engage with the guests we have today. So I'd like to hand it over to Francesca Gori at our partner Accenture, and she will introduce the rest of her team, and we will get this started.
Thanks a lot, Yvette, and nice to be with you today. And Yvette, I don't know if we're gonna play the video if you want. Otherwise, I can start to introduce some of the team, and then we can play also the video. We got.
Let's play the first video, the reimagined video.
Yeah. Good. And then we see you back.
Yeah.
Good, thanks a lot. So I think the video give a little bit of understanding what Accenture does and what Accenture actually vision in terms of being a technology consulting and strategy company around the world. We are approximately 500,000. So today, as I said, talking about a little bit of Accenture, but then I will definitely give the right time to Ziad to speak about his experience, because I think she is definitely the star of the. So, but going back to Accenture. So Accenture is a global employee across the world, based in more than 200 locations. So, and what we do, we serve business. So we serve a business-to-business company in terms of type of activity and across technology, digital innovation. What we do in terms of vision is really try to serve our client and bring an innovative mindset. And actually, what is our vision is to drive innovation, improve the way the world works and lives. Now, talking about one minute about myself and about the Accenture legal team, big multinational company, they do have also team in the company that actually work for the company. And being a lawyer, actually, I I'm leading the legal team for Accenture in Middle East. The legal team of Accenture is a team that is work for Accenture, so what we call in-house lawyers, and is a team around the world of 2,800 people, of expert lawyers on different fields of the law. And this is also to give you a little bit of understanding how the multinational company works. They do have people in the company that actually drive also and work with them to drive also the innovation. And being a lawyer in a technology company, you usually are in an area which are not necessarily regulated, right? So you are working their certainty and to the somehow sometimes unknown consequences. So agility is really a must, and in an environment which is very international because being in a firm, as Accenture told you, that is located in more than 200 countries, all the legal team is working closely together, really connected. Now, I don't want to spend more time, and I will definitely leave at the end if you have question and curiosity, and I'm sure that we will have also other opportunity to speak about legal professional if the students will be interested on. And by the way, as a paragraph, our CEO, Julie Sweet, actually, she was the general counsel, so she was the legal lead in Accenture, now is our CEO. This is also to give you the mindset of how the legal team is also a business partner in Accenture. Now, I will give now 1 minute to my colleague Begonia. Begonia, I work very close with her. She's our responsible for corporate citizenship, and she will give you 1 minute introduction what we do in Accenture to drive all our ethical and corporate citizenship agenda. And we're going to have then Peter is working out of our office in Amsterdam and in procurement, and is well responsible for sustainability in procurement. So to give you also a little bit of understanding how a procurement agenda of a company like Accenture choose the partner and the company we work with, and then we will go to Ziad and will tell us a little bit about his story. Begonia, to you, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Francesca. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. My name is Begoña Águeda. I am from Spain, supporter of Real Madrid, just in case there are some football supporter there. And as Francesca was mentioning, I'm part of the sustainability effort. And sustainability is something that is very important for you because obviously you're the next generation. And sustainability means everything where we can have an impact in the communities where we are operating. And that includes environment, that includes our communities, that includes the way we are operating, because we have a commitment and we have an obligation to do things in a responsible way. And as part of those efforts, one of the things that we seek to do is to rely on organizations such as yours, such as your school, to prepare the future leaders that will be leading this world in a sustainable manner. And this is the connection that I have with the school. So in between Francesca, my profile is also very different. As you can see, we have very different profiles working in Accenture. And I will pass it now to my colleague, Peter, who is one of our procurement leads in Accenture, that will explain to you the connection that we have with this wonderful company that is led by Ziad. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks so much, Begonia, and thanks everyone. Thank you so much for having us, and greetings from sunny Amsterdam. So my name is Peter Zerb. I'm part of the team that runs within our procurement a special program that really wants to aim to engage more suppliers that have a great innovation related to responsible business. So as Francesca already touched on, we have more than 500,000 people, 500,000 very smart people who help our clients on a day-to-day basis to become better, to become more agile, to become more inclusive, accessible, and responsible. But of course, we have so many great other minds that we would like to connect with. And those are the kind of the entrepreneurs that we're looking for. And that's why I put in CQ, because we are constantly curious about those who have great innovative ideas, who have the great energy that they can bring to us to help our clients even better. And and Accenture is pretty much everywhere. You might not know our name, but we are pretty much everywhere. If you go to your local Starbucks and you download the app, and you can order your drinks already before you pick them up, that might be an Accenture innovation. So it's pretty much everywhere. But of course, we need our suppliers to help us to become even better. So Accenture has a program around sustainability, inclusion and diversity, where we really want to engage more small businesses, diverse businesses, young entrepreneurs who have great innovative ideas, and help them to grow, help them to become a supplier to Accenture, to become a supplier to lots of our clients, but also help them to grow, use the Accenture skills, the Accenture expertise to help them also grow their business and become a supplier of Accenture. Those suppliers help us to reduce our carbon footprint. We help them, we partner with them to make sure that there's no modern slavery in our supply chain, but also we engage diverse businesses into our supply chain. So I want to give one example of one of the companies that we partnered with, and we can all go to the next slide.
Sorry, one second.
No problem. So one of the partners that we have is HEART, and it's actually a group of students from one of the tech universities in the Netherlands, and they came up with an idea about how can we change the way that mobility looks, and how can we find an alternative for flying or taking the train that is more comfortable, that is fast, that is responsible, that is sustainable. And they came up with the idea of the Hyperloop around 5-6 years ago, and developed a really great solution on how we can travel in the future. And can you imagine traveling 700 kilometers an hour from Amsterdam to Berlin in just 1 hour? And it is reality. It can become reality. The only thing is that it's not built yet. It's still under development. And they were looking for a way to make it more visible, to really have people really experience what it will feel like to travel in a Hyperloop, in the tube, and really being catapulted 700 kilometers an hour from Amsterdam to Berlin or to other cities. And that's where Accenture came in, because we used our expertise, we used how we leverage technology that is out there, in this case augmented reality, to really create that visibility. So maybe we can show the video.
Mm-hmm.
Hyperloop. It checks as the perfect alternative for short-haul flights. It's faster than airplanes, more comfortable than trains, sustainable and safe. But imagining what it would be like to travel with the Hyperloop is quite a challenge. While this is exactly what's important as a first step to getting to know and embracing this new way of travel. Since 2019, HEART has been working on ways to make this possible. A way to travel to the future and experience it yourself. And now it's time for the first step. This is the Cabin 1. The Cabin 1 is a realistic 101 slice straight out of the Hyperloop vehicle, equipped with the latest technology and with a completely finished interior, ready to take you into the future. The cabin has a two-seater with a table in the middle. I mean, we need to put our caramel iced coffee somewhere, right? The chairs are specially designed for the Hyperloop, adapted to the dimensions of the modern traveler. No leather, only durable alternatives. And to be honest, they're also quite comfortable. The tables and chairs float for maximum use of the available space. Organic shapes in the wall, the transition from the soft white to the copper, and again the smooth transition to the floor. The whole feels warm and welcoming. The infotainment display in the middle provides the traveler with the latest information. Below the seats, passengers can stow their small luggage. No more clumsiness above the head. But perhaps most eye-catching is the skylight system. Curved displays form a fully transformable ceiling over the entire length of the vehicle. By projecting all kinds of skies, we literally open the space to the outside world. And you can finally see the northern lights for yourself. A complete experience of the cabin interior and even the exterior. But there is more. In addition to the Cabin 1, we developed a digital experience. We will take you on a trip from Amsterdam to Berlin, and you will see how Hyperloop compares to other modalities. Using the latest AR technology, we will transform the single-slice cabin into a full-size vehicle. See the Hyperloop network slowly spread around the world. Finish your journey and become a Hypernaut. Nothing beats experiencing the Cabin 1 yourself. Find out where on experiencehyperloop.com.
Thank you so much. And this is really how it works with Accenture is, we take some ideas that some innovative people have, created, and we find ways to really make it to life, bring it to life. And this is what we did with the HEART team. but we have so many other amazing entrepreneurs, and one of them is Ziad Ahmed, and I would like to introduce him right now. I saw him for the first time in action. I think it was in December when we did our supply inclusion and sustainability virtual event, and his energy and amazing story really literally blew me away from my chair. So I was really excited to see him, and give him every opportunity to talk to you, to talk to everyone in the world. So with that, I'd like to give the stage to Ziad from JUV Consulting.
Thank you so much for that, Peter. Well, hi everyone, I'm Ziad. Oh, does Christina, do you want something to say? I think I'm supposed to encourage you all to turn on your cameras. As we start this section, I would love to feel like I know you and that we're in conversation with each other. Yes, I will begin by just quickly introducing myself and then tell you a little bit more about me and how I sort of ended up in front of you. But I also want this to be as interesting and or engaging for you as possible. So please drop questions in the chat as I go along. Happy to engage with them as I sort of talk. And thank you to the two of you who turned on your cameras so far. I like feeling like I'm talking to human beings. So appreciate that. But anyways, I'll just jump right in and start telling you a little bit more about myself. So I am Ziad. I am 22 years old. I just graduated from Yale a week ago, which is pretty crazy that I just finished college. I feel very, very old. Yes, thank you. It's a long time coming, but it was certainly quite the journey. Long story short, I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. I'm American Muslim. I'm Bangladeshi American. Was born and raised in Princeton, New Jersey, and grew up in an American Muslim household. Where I was really often asked not how am I going to make a difference in the world, but when, right? And not if, but how, right? And I grew up really cognizant of how my reality was the exception to the rule, right? And I grew up around so much privilege in so many ways in Princeton, and was deeply cognizant of the fact that, so many others did not have access to those same, educational opportunities or whatever it might be. And as an American Muslim in America, and I'm sure some of y'all are not unfamiliar with, these type of realities, right? I was oftentimes othered, right? Or made to feel different, right? And so through all of that, and because of all of that, I started a nonprofit sort of at the end of 8th grade called Redefy. And Redefy is a nonprofit that's committed to creating resources and information to make communities and schools more equitable and inclusive. And I thought of Redefy because, of course, of my own lived experience, right? Understanding and trying to reconcile privilege and community and solidarity and all of these virtues, but also because I switched schools from an all-boys Catholic school to a co-ed secular school when I was in 7th grade, which made me really cognizant of the entrenched gender norms that existed at my co-educational school that didn't in my all-boys school prior. And there was a really rigid understanding of what it meant to do a boy thing versus a girl thing, and that didn't sit right with me, right? And so that really then inspired me to start Redefy, with this idea being that it's really hard to hate somebody right? And so often that we're put into these boxes that we don't entirely belong, because it's easier for society to stereotype us than to try to reckon with the totality of who we are and how we are, right? And so I believe in the power of storytelling to hopefully rectify and remedy that in some way, right? By allowing us to reckon with the complexity of our identities, right? And how current events impacts our learning, right? And impacts our existence and development as human beings. And so I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but started Redefy when I was at the end of 8th grade, and it took off in a way that I could have never have imagined, because I think, like all of you, young people are grappling with questions surrounding identity and stereotypes and current events and where and how do we fit in, right? And so it resonated, and so we started growing really organically from there. And mind you, this will date me quite a bit. This was in September of 2013, and so the world looked very different then. This was, believe it or not, pre-Snapchat. This was pre-Instagram stories. This was pre, TikTok, which maybe is more imaginable. But, when we launched in September 2013, the platforms that we launched on were Skype, Ask FM, and Instagram. But at the time, there was no feature where you could share Instagram stories or etc. You couldn't share a post, a story, or anything like that. So literally all of my friends posted like a picture I sent to them on their feeds, right? Which is like unthinkable in today's, world, that we would all post like a text, like a cringy text post to our feeds, but we did, right? And it resonated and it took off because people wanted to talk about these issues in spaces and places with the platforms that we had access to at the time. And this was before an internet where everyone was posting, Instagram, infographics for their story about activist matters. Like no one was really talking in my circles, at least, about politics online. So this was considered quite novel, right? And so it took off in a big way. And then I found myself 2 years later still leading the organization, and get a random email one day from MTV News wanting to write a profile on me, and then they do, and then that same day the White House calls me, and I end up eating dinner with President Obama at age 16, and sort of crazy, wild things happening to me at a really young age that I could have never imagined, envisioned, or hoped for. And it was in those experiences that I realized how I believe that every young person deserves moments of validation that precious, right? And that I've been so lucky and privileged in my journey, but also that so often in these spaces that I then started getting invited to in government and industry, etc., I was the only young person. I was the youngest person in the room by 2 decades often, right? And people looked at me like, where did this kid come from? And like, I'm sitting there thinking like, I'm just another young person and my friends are way smarter and cooler than I am, right? And sort of subsequently, my junior year of high school, I founded something called JUV Consulting, which is what I spend most of my time doing now, as Peter alluded to. And JUV exists to empower young people. That's who we are. That's what we do. And clients come to us to figure out how to better empower young people, better understand young people, better reach young people. And we do that. My work comes from a place of believing that the expert on any reality is the person closest to that reality, and that the world looks better when diverse young people have a seat at the table. And so JUV is a manifestation of that, right? And it was really born out of this pain point of there being 50-year-old youth experts consulting on us, and us being like, no, like if anyone should be speaking for us, it should be us. And so I founded JUV what is now like 5.5 years ago, which is absolutely wild. And it's been quite the roller coaster to build this company while being a full-time student. Obviously, did the whole high school thing, Model UN, student government, science and math mentor, all that good stuff. While building JUV and Redefy, and then graduated from high school, went to college, studied political science, focused my research in school was focused, I guess past tense because I just graduated, on social media's impact on foreign policy, specifically as it relates to the Middle East. So I certainly also spend a lot of time thinking about the region where I believe you all reside. But in my work at JUV Consulting, we work with clients in sort of every industry, whether that be your major conglomerates and brands, as well as nonprofits, as well as political campaigns. And we have a team of young people from all around the world that work with us and work with our clients to help them center our voices and our narratives and co-create products, campaigns, and ideas that actually resonate with our generation. And we think that, young people, we have so much skills-based knowledge, right, just by virtue of spending so much time online, right? Like we have built up this incredible fluency, right, with language, with content, with media, that is really, really, really valuable to anybody building anything, right? And that there is so much conversation about the power of young people, but very little empowering of young people, and a lot of speculation, right, about youth culture and about what's hot, but very little actual conversation with those people who are actually setting those trends and actually deciding what's hot, which is Gen Z. And so we're trying to flip that narrative and really center our voices to arrive at solutions that are actually exciting to us. And I'm sure you are all very familiar with cringy advertising and marketing campaigns that try to appeal to our generation that fall flat because they don't know what the heck is actually going on with us. And so we're trying to change that by, centering more of our voices. And so we do everything from like advisory councils to marketing campaigns. If y'all are on TikTok, and I'm sure most of you are on TikTok, we work with many of the biggest influencers on the platform, everyone from Sienna Mae Gomez to Amelie Zilber to Jack Wright to et cetera, who are my friends, and who we get to work with to build campaigns for our clients that actually resonate with our generation. And so that's a huge part of what we do now is influencer marketing, is creative campaigns, and some of which I'm sure if you're on TikTok a lot, you've seen some of our campaigns on your For You page. You wouldn't know that it's us behind them, but that's who comes up with the creative and works with the client and the influencers to make that magic happen. And we do research, we do a ton of stuff like that. And there are certainly always opportunities for other young people from all around the world to get involved. And so I will drop our website in the chat. in case any of you guys are ever interested in getting involved, in our social handles as well. But you can certainly check out the opportunities that we have. We have a network of over 5,000 young people that y'all can certainly apply to join, that help give feedback to companies, and we send opportunities to, whether that's internships or things like that. That certainly is what a lot of high schoolers really like being a part of. And we are a community and a company of those ages 14 to 24, who are a bunch of diverse young people who are trying to make our voices heard in a really powerful way to hopefully make business in the world operate differently, because so many of us are being left behind right now. And I probably do not need to remind you all of how many systemic injustices exist, and that why we as a company do the work that we do is to hopefully make business in the world be better, because I think we ought to be and need to be, and must be, given the realities of this moment and where we're living. And yeah, that's sort of what I do. And now I'm graduated from college and going to be working on JUV full time, but I also have my hands on a lot of other projects. I stay quite active on social media, as well as involved in political advocacy and spaces like that. But yeah, that's basically me. I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you might have. I hope this was somewhat interesting or engaging for you all. But yeah, I'm literally happy to answer anything, whether it's about like college or my company or my nonprofit or like social media or whatever it might be. Happy to answer any and all questions that you might have. But thank you for having me and spending some time with me on today. Yeah, and thank you, Accenture and ACS, for bringing me here.
Cool. So does anyone have any questions that they're thinking about right now that you may want to ask? Yeah, Rohan, yes, go.
So you talk about us being Generation Z, being the youngest generation, that we should always have a voice in things. And I strongly agree with that, but I also have to ask, our generation being so young, or people within our generation groups being so young, that also means, and I'm putting this brashly, I apologize, but we're also the dumbest generation. We don't have nearly as much experience as the older generations above us. And yes, the older generations have messed up, and yes, they've caused a lot of the problems we face now. But how do we create an interaction between how do you think we should create an interaction between the older generation and the younger generation, in which we can balance it out, where where the younger generation doesn't use their inexperience to make poor decisions, but the older generation doesn't use their, I'm not sure how you would describe it, but their old world mindset to our generation. So that's my question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Look, so I certainly believe that, as a young person, I have a lot to learn, right? And I have an advisory council of adults who advises me on all that I do. I also hired my first 2 millennials in this last year, so we're not entirely just Gen Zers at the company anymore, as I think there's a lot that we can benefit from experience. And look, when we work with our clients who traditionally are adults at many of the biggest entities in the world, yes, they're paying us to learn from us and our expertise, but we also learn from them, of course, right? And so I do think that intergenerational dialogue and learning from each other is essential to this equation. However, what I want to push back on is this idea that we already know, like, it's not something new or novel to think that adults have something to teach kids. Like that, the infrastructure for that already exists, right? Like that's what school is. That's what like so much of society is this idea that age and experience should be synonymous with authority, right? And should be synonymous with the ability to impact change. And what I think we're saying is, yes, that should not be the case, but it should also be the case that we acknowledge and reckon with, we have so much experience when it comes to the digital world, which is actually where the majority of trends and culture are emerging from right now. And we are uniquely, right, experts in that area. We are uniquely experts in the area of our own identities. We are uniquely experts in areas that we've really immersed ourselves in, where adults oftentimes cannot possibly enter in the same way, right? And so in those spaces, we should be seen as authorities, right? In specific fields, in ways, and adults and previous generations need to learn from us. And that isn't to say that on life lessons, right, in actual skills-based learning, like I can't just like decide that I'm an expert on physics without learning it from, like there are many things like you have to learn the skill, but I don't think that like TikTok is one of them, right? Like we spend 40 hours a week on it. We know it better. That's just a fact, right? And so if you're trying to reach people through TikTok, like then it begets you to really center young voices in doing so. And if you're interested in impact, I think young people have so many powerful, salient ideas about not what's impacting, us right now, but what's going to impact our future, because it's our future that we're inheriting. And so I think it's really essential that we have a seat at that table, but I'm not suggesting that adults shouldn't also be at the table. They just already are. I'm fighting for us also getting to have seats at those tables.
Ziad, if I may, I mean, I echo as Francesca. Hi, everyone. And Rona, thanks a lot for your question. I think everything is about, I think, Ziad, what you're saying is about inclusion and diversity, meaning, everyone in a diverse team, including age, will bring and will impact. So I don't think we are advocating that, only young people, only, let's say, people with a different or specific stereotypes should bring their view, right? So I think it's really about the powerful of diverse team that actually, and who everybody's listened, everybody's heard, and is going to bring really a lot of value on the conversation, and that's, I think, where it comes. The concept of inclusion diversity, which is about even different skill set as well, right? Even different age or different ethnicity. I think that's I guess it's I think the powerful also what Peter is doing in Accenture is trying to drive sustainability, which is avoiding stereotype of actually bringing the diverse, a diverse team to work together, because innovation comes with an innovative mindset. Innovative mindset might even a situation where people is not afraid also to fail, because when it brings innovation, there might be ideas that are not necessarily working, and then you need to be ready also to fail, but then starting again, and this is also, I mean, there are a lot of research about innovation mindset, which bring different people together, and people that are not afraid also to to say what they think, and also to making sure that the other people are listening.
Thank you.
Great question, Rohan. Anyone else have a question?
I think Alia does.
Yeah, Alia. Yes, go, Alia. Yay.
Is that how you pronounce it? I'm sorry.
Yeah. This is kind of like a general question, but how was your overall Yale experience? What are some of your highlights?
So I'm very emotional about graduating, and so I'm processing that question in real time, right? Because I just graduated last week, and I feel very complicated about graduating. Actually, my last Instagram post, I have a long caption about this, because I wasn't there very often, right? I was running this company while going to school, so I would cram my classes on 2 to 3 days a week, and then leave to go to New York or Abu Dhabi or wherever the wind takes me, right, for work and for speaking and etc. And so I have wonderful friends from Yale, and I loved my learning at Yale. And it's not that I missed out on anything obvious. I went to parties, whatever, right? But it wasn't my center of gravity, right? I had so many different centers of gravity, and I missed out on a lot of in-between moments, right? If it wasn't in my GCal, it wasn't happening. Right? If I couldn't fit it into my calendar, there was no time to do it. And I think there's a lot of magic that happens in college, that happens in life, in unscheduled time, right? In serendipity, in happenstance. And I denied myself of a lot of happenstance and serendipity by being so structured, right, with my time to do all the things that I was doing. And so I think the reason I preface my answer with all that is because I think that my highlights were the few moments of serendipity, right? Were the few moments of happenstance, were the nights when my calendar was clear and I could just find myself in my dorm room at 3 a.m. meeting new people and ending up at someone's suite where I never met them and making a lifelong friend in that magic, right? Or those moments that were so fluid in the moment, but so meaningful in retrospect, I think were the real highlights. And of course, right, there are highlights that are the stereotypical accolades and classes and academic success. But truthfully, that's not what stands out when I look back, right? What stands out when I look back is the moments when I was awake at 4 a.m. with my best friend, right, laughing about some stupid pun we made, right? And those were the moments that I wish I had spent more time prioritizing, when I look back now.
That was beautiful.
Thanks for sharing.
Christina, if I go either, I mean, if I'm not kind of using the time of the students, can I ask you, Ziad, because I think I'm absolutely fascinated by what you have shared with us, and I mean, if you, I mean, things at university level have changed so much from the time that I completed my university and probably the time that some of these students are going to be completed. If you had to say what are the skills that you see now that you have your own organization that you would say, I mean, if I want to hire a person, these are the skills that need to be there. Everything else, technical, everything else can be acquired. But what is the essential things for you? And I would like to know if it's the same that we have in Accenture, for example.
It's a great question, and one that I'm thinking about a lot because we are hiring a lot these days. We're about to hit 20 people full time, which is pretty crazy. And we have 150 contractors in our network, and it depends on the role. It's not necessarily the same for every single role, but by and large, I would say that the skills, the qualities that are most important in our hiring processes are, I think the number one thing for me is, does this person excite me? Right? Like, is this person exciting? Is this person going to challenge us to be better? Right? And bring new perspective to the table. I also think that like the most underappreciated like skill set is just competence. Like it's just like being on top of things. Somebody who responds on time, somebody who, is consistently reliable is the most important thing. Like I think if you can respond on time and get things done and have a personality and perspective, like everything else is secondary. I think obviously at JUV, we care tremendously about values. So we're looking for people who want to change the world, who've tried to change the world. We're looking for people who have passion, right? Who have purpose, right? We're looking for people who have personality, right? Who can banter with us. We care a lot about banter. Right? We're looking for people who can impress our clients, right? Those are things that are, of course, important to us. And of course, we're looking for critical thinking skills. We're looking like the thing that I value so much is like, can this person have a thought that I could have never had? Like that's when I'm like really compelled by somebody. When someone thinks so differently than me that like they could arrive at a conclusion that was inconceivable to me, right? And I think that that's like when I'm like, wow, like I need this person on my team because their mind is so brilliant that like I will learn and this company will be better because of it. And so I don't really care about where people went to school, and I don't care what their GPA was, and I don't care about the superficial metrics and the vanity of performance. I care about, am I liking my conversation with this person, right? Do the follow-up accordingly? And we ask a lot of really bizarre out of the box questions, and so can they think on their feet, right? And make magic where there was none.
Wow, cool. I would love to know one of those questions, but
I can tell you some of the questions.
Okay.
So like, we ask like one of our like questions that we ask in group interviews. We do group interviews for some of our roles. Is like, is a sandwich a hot dog? Is a hot dog a sandwich? And the best answer that I've ever heard was, so like people debate a lot about like a hot dog being a sandwich based on like the fact that a sub in like a hoagie, the bread also connects. So like, oh, it should be a sandwich because like the bread connects. And so like, it's not like a sandwich isn't just two pieces of bread, because there are examples of sandwiches like paninis or et cetera, where like the bread connects, right? And like, that's what a lot of the discourse typically centers around. But the best answer that I ever got was, a hot dog is not a sandwich because because we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on the bread, but the differentiation point is not the bread. It's the meat itself. A hot dog without the bread is still a hot dog. So therefore, a hot dog is not a sandwich because it's about the meat. It's not about the bread or the configuration. Because if I served you a hot dog without the bread at all, you'd still say this is a hot dog. And I would have never had that thought, right? But it's logical and it's brilliant and it's interesting, right? And it made us all think through a challenge in a way that we would have never thought through the challenge, right? And so like that is an example of a question and an answer that I think is sort of what I'm looking for.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I think Rohan has another one.
Right.
Another Alia asks, where is JUV Consulting based in? And I'll answer that really quickly. We're based in New York City, but we have people on our team from all around the world, including the Middle East.
Okay.
But Rohan, over to you.
Okay. Thank you. So my next question would be, so the difference between the United States of America and the United Arab Emirates is that the
there's a lot of differences.
Yeah, but the biggest one I'd say is that the United States of America lets you speak freely against the government, and lets you speak freely in general, and does not control the press, while the UAE does. And I hope I don't get in trouble for this. But I'm joking, of course. But you were able, in 8th grade, you were able to start a group, a NGO, I believe, that changed a lot of things. You were able to, by age 16, you were able to visit former President Obama. And you were one of the youngest people to ever do so. But in the UAE, we're not able to start NGOs like that. We're not able to start NGOs because of a racial or minority.
I think Rohan froze.
Yeah, Rohan, you're frozen.
But I think I understand the gist of the question.
If you turn your video off, Rohan, for just 1 second while you are talking.
Yeah. And Ziad, I'm looking at time as well. What do you interpret as this gist of that question, or where it was going, and how do you want to answer it?
Yeah, happy to. I think it's a really fascinating question. Obviously, I can't speak to what it's like to grow up in a regime that is very different than my own, and I'm born and raised in a very American context. And a lot of like my lived experience is relative to my positionality, to my government, right, and the world that I grew up in. But I think the question is probably along the lines of, given the disparate realities in different regions, like, what do you think young people should do about that, right? And I think that I have been very lucky and privileged in my journey, right? For so many reasons. I think that there are ways that we can all make change. I think there are ways that we can all actualize our dreams. They look different, right? Based on the agency, based on the circumstance of our lived experience. And if I don't think any two of us should or can make change in the same way, right? Like, we're all different, have different positionalities and different risks and circumstances associated with the different decisions that we could or will make, right? And so what it might look like to be a change agent in a UAE context versus USA context is different, but that does not make it lesser, right? And it does not make it less impactful, right? And I think the world is changing, right? In the UAE, in the USA, I think the world is changing. I think there's room everywhere for dissidents. I think there is room everywhere for innovation, right? What and how that manifests, I can't speak to in circumstances that I do not understand. But I think it can and should and ought to exist everywhere. And we can fight for that right.
Yeah. I think one of the cool things about that too, and you're talking about taking in the circumstances of where you are and which you live, you all have this privilege of being in this American school bubble at ACS, and where a lot of the organizations that are in play on our campus was brought in or started by an ACS student. And that is already one small impactful way that you can leverage what you have. Some schools don't have those opportunities and those service groups the way you all have. And again, the popular ones were ones that were brought in by the suggestion of and started by a student. So yeah, I agree. There's some things that that we can't do, but you have this wonderful protective bubble that you can lean into a little bit more and leverage that in a bigger way as opportunity arises as well. So yeah, I would definitely say you don't have to look too far or whatever to start something and be innovative where you are. I think we have time for one more question.
If I can just add to what you were saying, Christina, I think I mean this idea of change is kind of has been flowing throughout the whole session. I mean in the first video that we were kind of showing to you in the very quick introduction that we were trying to make, in what Ziad is mentioning about how to make businesses better. I mean I think that you have a wonderful opportunity to do things better, because this is what the planet where you're going to be living more than we are going to be is needed. So whatever you decide and whatever you choose, you will need to do things differently, right? Otherwise, so that's another way of advocacy as well, I think, as I take it.
All right, one more question to the floor. Because we're keeping an eye on time. Okay, well, in the chat, Ziad graciously placed in the social media handles and links to his company. We are starting to do more relationship building with Accenture on our campus for our students and look at other opportunities to bring stuff in. This sounds very cheesy and adult, but like, you are the future, and like, you can make a difference in this world at any age. So hopefully, like, you dig into more of his story and maybe even be inspired to continue on your own stories and journeys that can really influence change, because that's what this is, ideally what this is about. And then you too can influence a large multi-international corporation who's seeking your advice on whatever it is that you have going on. Any final remarks, Ziad, before we move on? Also, if you have questions about legal professionals, you can ask as well. But any last minute or closing thoughts and ideas?
No, just thank you so much for having me. Like, do check out JUVconsulting.com, like, and join the network if you're interested. And feel free to like keep in touch via Instagram or TikTok or wherever. Like, I'm active everywhere online, and so is Juve. And Juve's TikTok's actually really good and funny, so check us out. JUV Consulting on TikTok, on Instagram, etc. But keep in touch. If I can be helpful in your journeys, reach out. My email is contact@ziadahmed@gmail.com. I'm not always the best at responding to that inbox, but I try my best. So keep in touch if I can be helpful, and thank you for spending some time with me, and inshallah, I hope that you guys are all having a wonderful end of your May.
Cool. And thank you so much, Ziad and the team from Accenture. Do you guys have any closing thoughts as well, or?
Francesca, you're mute, I think, Francesca.
Yeah. No, so thanks a lot, Christina. Thanks a lot to everyone to be with us today. Thanks, Ziad, for joining the conversation. So, Christina, we are, we will be, happy to have any other, if there are any other questions from the students later on, just let us know. Otherwise, we're gonna meet soon and through our collaboration. And I wish you the good week.
Yeah. Thank you. And you all good week. Good next week too is assessment week. Finals assessment week. So
good luck on finals. I don't miss that. That was not the highlight of school. That was not the highlight of school.
Exactly.
That's a big push that we're all in it. Everyone's holding on by their nails to the end of the school year. So
good luck.
Exactly. Okay.
Right, thank you so much for everything. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, everyone left. Okay.